Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at a massive, profound paradigm shift that hit the 1500s and 1600s. We're talking about the exact moment humanity stopped just taking ancient texts at their word and actually started testing the natural world around us. It's not just a story about the first telescopes, right? It is literally about how we rewrote the rules for defining truth and understanding our own reality.
To get there, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the ancient Earth-centered world, then move into shifting the universe's center, discovering universal natural laws, navigating those inevitable clashes with church and state, and finally, forging the modern mindset.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the ancient Earth-centered world, relying on the past.
So, picture this. For centuries, if you were an educated European, your entire understanding of the cosmos was built on ancient Greek and Roman writers, especially Aristotle and Ptolemy. The absolute, unquestioned truth was that the Earth sat completely motionless at the center of these giant crystal spheres. Up above, heavenly objects that were perfect, completely unchanging. Down below, earthly events that were corrupt and constantly changing. And you know, this classical knowledge was meticulously copied and woven together in major intellectual hubs like Baghdad, Cordoba, and monasteries all across Europe. They all shared this perfectly unified, unquestioned worldview.
But then the Renaissance hits, and the cracks really start showing in that foundation. Humanist scholars are suddenly pushing people to look at original sources and the actual natural world. Artists are studying human anatomy in intense detail, and explorers are coming back with maps and biological specimens that totally contradict those trusted old books, which naturally leads to this massive, world-shaking question bubbling up. Well, if ancient authorities could be completely wrong about geography or human anatomy, is it possible they were also completely wrong about the heavens?
Which brings us to Section 2, shifting the universe's center, the spark of revolution.
Humanity was about to experience a literal shift in our place in the cosmos. Remember, for centuries, that Earth-centered geocentric system from Aristotle and Ptolemy was just absolute fact. But then, in 1543, Nicholas Copernicus drops a quiet but absolutely devastating proposal, a heliocentric system. He suggested the Earth and the other planets actually revolve around the sun. I mean, imagine the absolute shock of being told the solid, unmoving ground beneath your feet is actually hurtling through space.
Now, this didn't just happen overnight. It built rapidly. Copernicus proposes heliocentrism in 1543, right? Fast forward to the early 1600s, and Johannes Kepler uses some serious math to prove planetary orbits are actually elliptical, like ovals, not perfect circles. Then, in 1610, Galileo makes his game-changing telescope observations. And finally, late 1600s, Isaac Newton publishes his unifying laws of motion. It goes from a theoretical model to undeniable physical laws.
Speaking of Galileo, his upgraded telescope was basically a brand new lens for humanity. He points this tube at the sky and finds visual evidence that completely shatters that old idea of perfect crystal spheres. He sees mountains and craters on the moon, he observes sunspots, he finds 4 moons orbiting Jupiter, and absolutely crucially, he watches Venus go through a full set of phases. Think about that for a second. Venus going through phases could literally only happen if it was definitively orbiting the sun. It was undeniable proof.
Okay, moving right along to Section 3, discovering universal natural laws, the new rules.
So the real magic here is how these isolated space discoveries synthesized into a brand new framework for nature itself. Sir Isaac Newton comes along in the late 1600s and argues that the universe isn't driven by mysterious, unpredictable forces. No, it's driven by consistent, discoverable laws. He formulates the laws of motion and universal gravitation. He proves that the exact same mathematical law that pulls a falling apple into the dirt is the very same law holding the moon in its orbit. He united heaven and earth under one perfectly predictable mathematical system.
But it wasn't just new theories. This era gave us entirely new tools for thinking. Enter thinkers like the English philosopher Francis Bacon and the French philosopher René Descartes. They laid the groundwork for the scientific method. Bacon is arguing for an inductive approach. Gather hard evidence first, then draw your conclusions. Descartes says no. Start with pure doubt and demand clear, logical proof. Combine those, and they completely transformed how we define truth. Knowledge had to come from controlled experiments and real data, not just blindly trusting an old book. In practice, this created an incredibly actionable system. 1. Ask a question. 2. Form a hypothesis. 3. Collect data through observation or experiment. 4. Analyze those results. And 5. Revise the hypothesis if you need to.
It's a step-by-step process that turned abstract philosophy into a working engine of discovery. It replaced blind tradition with a rigorous culture of testing and openly sharing what you find.
Which leads us to Section 4, clashes with church and state, shockwaves in society. You can imagine, because religious institutions had held the ultimate monopoly on explaining how the universe worked and why it existed, this shift in intellectual authority caused some profound clashes. When scientists started proposing models that contradicted traditional scripture, religious leaders were, well, understandably alarmed. The most famous example is Galileo, of course. The Church accepted the Earth-centered universe, so Galileo's open defense of a sun-centered model led to severe consequences. In 1633, the Roman Inquisition put him on trial, found him vehemently suspect of heresy, forced him to recant, and put him under house arrest.
But wait, it's really vital to remember that this wasn't just a simple black and white war between science and faith. A lot of these pioneering scientists were actually deeply religious themselves. They viewed these natural laws as uncovering God's orderly design, not replacing it. And over time, the institutions adjusted. Things like eclipses, comets, or diseases started to be viewed as physical events with physical causes rather than direct signs of divine punishment. That shift allowed religion to focus on moral and spiritual questions, leaving the mechanics of nature to science.
Now, this intellectual earthquake quickly rippled right into politics. Enlightenment philosophers looked at these scientific laws and asked a pretty revolutionary question. Shouldn't human society and government have natural laws too? John Locke argued for natural rights, life, liberty, property, that belong to us by nature, kind of mirroring the universe's universal laws. And Montesquieu suggested dividing government power to prevent tyranny, which directly mimicked the scientific idea of balancing physical forces. So science was actively inspiring democratic thought.
Yet at the exact same time, rulers were absolutely using these scientific advancements to centralize their own power. They're using better navigation and map-making to expand their empires overseas. They're applying new physics to artillery to fight more effective wars. They're doing careful land surveys to collect property taxes more efficiently, and using accurate clocks to perfectly coordinate their armies. So while the new science inspired ideas of democratic, law-bound government, it simultaneously handed rulers the exact tools to make centralized states infinitely more powerful.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Forging the Modern Mindset, Culture and Everyday Life.
By turning science into a collaborative public activity, society literally laid the practical foundations for the modern world. We see the rise of dedicated research institutions like the Royal Society of London and the French Academy of Sciences. Printing presses are just churning out books, sharing diagrams and data across borders. Universities start treating ancient authorities like Aristotle as a starting point, not the final answer, and they shift focus to math and natural philosophy. Ultimately, this collective curiosity sparked massive, tangible improvements in medicine, engineering, and agriculture. Society actually started to believe that humans could improve their own lives by simply understanding the laws of nature.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. I'm going to leave you with this thought. We built the modern world by systematically questioning ancient authorities and demanding observable evidence. Instead of just accepting an explanation because it came from someone powerful, we insisted on testing and measuring reality. So if the scientific revolution taught us anything, it's that we have to always measure and debate. So, what about today? What long-held assumptions or accepted truths in your world might need a closer look through a brand new lens? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.